Shalom ubracha, peace and blessings. This week's Torah reading is called Kedoshim. It is a directive to the children of Israel to be holy. The Torah reading begins with the mandate, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael, speak or say to the entire community of Israel, Kedoshim tiyu, you shall be holy, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elahechem, because I am holy, I am the Lord your God. And then the Parsha continues with a playbook on how to achieve this. The Parsha tells us, Ish imo v'yaviv tirau, we should respect our parents. It tells us not to chase after idols. It tells us the laws of a peace offering. And then it continues to tell us how to harvest our land and leave things over for the poor. Perhaps the most quoted piece of this week's Torah reading is the mandate to V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself, which is part of every religious tradition. And Christians know it as the Golden Rule. Muslims have it as a mandate of the Prophet Muhammad. In our tradition, it's noteworthy that it says, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. And in fact, in this week's Torah reading, it also says, V'ahavta es hager, you shall love the stranger. The usage of these two words is quite important. Re'acha and ger, your neighbor and a stranger. A neighbor is a very random thing. Could be talking about the person who lives next door to you or the person who happens to be standing next to you at the moment. In fact, we are charged to love all of creation and realize that in doing so, we pay ultimate respect to the Creator. When the Torah tells us to love the stranger, it says something very interesting. Ki gerem hayisem be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. That was a mandate to a particular generation, but it's a mandate that rings true today. We are very much struggling with the concept of loving the stranger. We're faced with the reality that people are fleeing regimes that are persecuting them and looking towards our country to be a safe haven. And as we respond to that call, we also realize that there is a fear that among those strangers who seek protection on our shores, there may be people among them who have less than sincere motives. So how do we fulfill the V'ahavta es hager, you shall love the stranger, and also fulfill the mandate, Ushmartem me'odes nafshosechem, you shall exceedingly guard your life? We need to bring the balance to this equation from this week's Torah reading. Ki gerem hayisem be'eretz Mitzrayim. You have a historical perspective. You were once strangers in the land of Egypt, but not only that, you were once strangers in the land that we know as America. Each of us who lives in this great country can trace our ancestry to someone who came here running away from something, unless, of course, you're an American Indian. For me, my great-grandparents came to this country fleeing Tsar Nicholas and the oppression of his government. And when they came here, they were faced with similar suspicions. Those who came fleeing the communists were faced with suspicions of being communists. Those who came fleeing the Nazis were faced with suspicions of being agents of the Nazis. And those who come today fleeing the terror that we know of ISIS are faced with fears of being agents of that terror. It's important for us to understand that more than 80% of the victims of ISIS are Muslims. When we look at those who come to our door seeking protection, it's important for us to understand that we once walked in their shoes as well. I'm not naive. I realize that it is imperative for us to have a screening process, that we must fulfill the biblical mandate of Ushmartim Odis Nafshosechem, you shall exceedingly guard your life. But at the same time, we need to realize that the mandate of loving the stranger is mentioned more than any other in the Torah. And we are always reminded, Ki gerim hayisem, you were once strangers as well. Every single one of us, aside from those who descend from American Indians, were once strangers at some point in our family history. The ability to embrace and protect the stranger is part of our tradition as Jews and as Americans. May we be blessed with the ability to navigate this great challenge without allowing the scourge of terrorism to rob us of who we are. Shabbat Shalom.